I'm going to first take a view from all the four of you in terms of the overall regional uprising and what's happening with the media, and then we'll once again go to the audience. Let me first start with Kumarvel. Kumarvel doesn't need any introduction, but I need to do it formally as well. He as an industry observer, he has decorated, or probably to say a barber into a stylist, right? And way back in 1998, there was a film called Minsara Kanavu, and in that we had Prabhudeva as a stylist. That was the first time that we saw a barber being portrayed as a stylist. But a few years later, this gentleman sitting here, Koola, Kama, inge eppadi ukkandirukaro, Kamal sir pinnadiyum appadiye kuda ukkandittu, he's working very closely with M&M, but he's created a huge industry all by himself. So big round of applause and all the credit to have organized this entire saloon industry very honestly. And எனக்கு அவரை ரொம்ப வருஷமாக தெரியும், இது மிகையாக பேசுறது சும்மா அந்த மேடைக்காக நான் சொல்லலை. ஃபேண்டாஸ்டிக் ஒர்க். அந்த பார்பரை வந்து ஒரு அவ்வளோ பெரிய ஒரு பியூட்டிஃபுல்லான ஒரு, இன்னைக்கு nobody calls anyone as barber, right? They're all stylists, and that's how we call. So coming specific to this event, sir, you roped in Kareena Kapoor, and you roped in Kareena Kapoor when she was at her peak, right? And naturals meant Kareena, Kareena meant naturals, and it was so strongly imbibed in the minds of consumers. So if you can tell us how this whole thing happened, how did you embrace the media going along with Kareena, and how did you build naturals as a brand along with the media?
Yeah, thank you, Sriram. And before that, I want to quickly talk about an anecdote which happened 6 months before. I walked into one of my natural salon. I wanted to have a quick shave in the morning, 10 o'clock. I was rushing for a meeting, and the receptionist did not recognize me. I felt very sad and happy. Sad because she did not recognize me. Happy because, okay, the brand has become that big. And I walked in, the first person also did not recognize me. This time I started feeling little more sad. Then I walked in and I saw the second person. Luckily he recognized me, and he asked me to sit, and he asked me, "Are you C.K. Kumaravel?" I thought, thank God. So I said yes. And I said, I wanted to come and meet you and say thank you. I said, for what? He said, I have been in this industry. I worked in a competitor salon for 6 years and naturals for the last 10 years. Before you had come, the society did not recognize us. It is a taboo industry, and hairdressers are not recognized as a professional in this industry. After you had come, now people are looking at as a hairstylist. Today, some of our hairdressers and hairstylists, creative artists are earning even close to ₹1,00,000 a month. So that is the change I had made. I said, thank you very much. More than the woman entrepreneur I used to speak very often. I thought this taboo industry which is attached to this, we have managed to remove it. Now the next taboo industry I have taken is politics. And that is what this is now. It should become a lifestyle industry. Only when politics becomes a lifestyle industry, the life of all the people of the country will be very good. And that's what is my second industry I am looking at that at this point of time. Coming specifically to your question, why Kareena Kapoor? At that point of time, I had two things to address. One is a competition within the branded salon in South India was increasing. So I have to move forward from Genelia to a new phase. And that was one thing which I was looking at. And second thing is I wanted to make the brand naturals into a national brand. So I needed a brand ambassador who is very credible, who is very aspirational. And that is when we took Kareena Kapoor. My first part of this thing was met. It worked very well in South India. Actually, it did not work well in North India. Why it did not work? It is more our mistake than Kareena Kapoor's mistake.
Thank you so much for that. 600 plus salons now, and only growing. 95% of the salons are owned and operated by women entrepreneurs. So that's the natural story. And of course, I'm going to ask him a lot more questions. Rahul Rao from Go Colors is not here. Unfortunately, there's some personal challenge that he faced this morning, and therefore he is not there. Right after that, we have Vishal. Vishal is from Viveks. Viveks is a 52-year-old consumer durables brand right out of Chennai. I have told across the country, across the world, that Madras, Chennai is really the retail capital of India. We've had and continue to have such illustrious brands. Mr. Kodanam Chetty, who's the chairman, I call him as the Pitamaha of Indian retail. Compare him to the Bhishma of Mahabharata, because this is a real war that we are literally fighting from the minds of consumers. And chairman has paved the way for many, many businesses to come. But specific to Viveks, Vishal is again second generation, runs multiple portfolios within the organization. But what I want to ask you, Vishal, is today there is a huge ecosystem which is built by your brands. So Apple is doing its bit, Samsung is doing its bit, Xiaomi is doing its bit, and then you're also advertising. So how has this evolved and changed in the last 10 years? With brands coming forth a lot more than what they were doing before, to work very closely with you as a retail partner. That part of the media, if you can elaborate on that.
To clarify your question, when you say brands, it's the manufacturer brands that we're dealing with?
That's right.
Okay. If you take the big four in ours, primarily Samsung, LG, Sony, and those, they have been helping us, but I would say in the last few years, they are also in a sticky situation where we are sometimes the main advertisers for them. A lot of the brand visibility is through us. They have reduced their spends and probably their focus is more on selling. Their advertising is more to do with seasonal or something to do with the launch. So this is where it is. So, and again, if you take Tamil Nadu, probably by far the most competitive state for retail across India, we close to have 10 big retailers having about 600 stores. So for all those brands to help us, it's difficult. So indirectly, directly, we help them.
And specific to Viveks, what's been your exposure towards mainstream media in terms of your advertising, percentage spent towards the turnover, or in terms of value? I mean, whatever you could elaborate on the audience.
I think Sriram wants to open the box out. So yeah, anyway, I think all of us have a formula. It's anywhere between 2.5% to 3%. And coming to the mainstream media, it's off late, I feel it's becoming really expensive. And every brand is trying to get a space in it. I don't know where the fight is sort of going to go. And if you take honestly, after a recent changeover in our structure, changing portfolios, I believe be it the older generation, the younger generation, the millennials and the Gen X or the Gen Z, whatever you call it, all of them are sort of spending time on the OTT platforms and the digital platforms. So one such thing that I have done is I've slightly increased my budgets to the OTT and the digital platforms where visibility is good, traction is good, and there is some sort of measurement for us. So that is sort of helping us.
You've touched upon a question which I've kept for the next round, but I'm going to come back to you and
Sure.
take a little bit more on that. I'm going to jump Wavemakers and move to Sandeep from TDK Healthcare. I'm going to come back to you because you will summarize what the other three advertisers are going to be talking about. Sandeep, your brands, Eva and many other from the house of TDK. TDK is trust. I mean, what Tata's is at a national level is trust. I think TDK from South, especially from Chennai, means trust. And the company's name itself is TDK Healthcare, right? So how has your advertising on the mainstream evolved over the last so many years? We still don't see too much of Eva ads on the TV now than it used to be before. So where is all that money going in? Because your business is anyway growing.
Yeah, so I think it's a perennial challenge. I think Rajendra is the best person to talk about this, having worked with him for quite some time. Media budgets are, like a evaporating decibel or whatever you want to call it. You put in money, even my salesperson says, I've not seen it. So you put it on digital, the salesperson is never going to see it. So it's a challenge. So, when I saw the topic yesterday, of course, it was very interesting. 360 degrees, campaigns to 360 degrees experience. And actually, the whole challenge is about how can I use that media money into creating experiences, okay? And, but this experience creating is also becoming very expensive. Okay, I mean, just giving an example, long back, I mean, when, let's say, Sony Handycam, I was just working in an agency, they wanted a, experience, it was 2000, whatever. So we had a formula, we, said, okay, we'll do some telecalling with high-end network individuals, we'll get them to a, theme park, and we'll get them to use the camera, features, X, Y, Z. But today, to go and talk to consumers, get their time, is such a big premium that it's not so easy. To say that, hey, you come down, you do something, it's very difficult, very difficult. So the core of the issue here is that the message, okay, the message has to reach, but eventually the person has to get a experience. Okay, so the message has to be 360 degrees. How the experience can linger on for 365 days, I think that's the most important thing. And I was trying to jog my memory and see if there are any, experiences that actually are able to do this. One such which I came, a couple of them which I thought about is, let's say McDonald's, okay. They have the Happy Meal concept. So the Happy Meal concept is nothing, there's a message which has gone to the kids, and this is running 365 days, right? So that's the way you're able to connect with the consumers, build on an experience every time, and trust me, it's not about just my kid who wanting to go there. It's me, if I'm traveling, me going and buying a Happy Meal so that the toy for that reaches him. That's the connect. And I think, yeah, so we have to figure out how to create the experience. And that experience is important.
And specific to your brands, the brands that you're managing at TDK, what's been your experience with creating these experiences?
So, I mean, we've been doing something which is with colleges. So, I think no radio partner out here. So, with Radio Mirchi, we're doing something with the colleges called, the Kalluri Stars. So, we did it last year. We did some 50 colleges last year in Tamil Nadu. This year, we are doing some 100 colleges. So, it's a complete, all the girls, so primarily girls colleges, anybody coming into freshers, kind of, they do a talent kind of a contest. And so that's the brand connect, creating experiences over there. We've tried to move it to Bombay, Pune as well. So there has to be some experience. But yeah, we're trying to see how we can integrate digital to create an experience. So yeah, there are some thoughts of how we, these experience needs to start percolating different arenas and different touch points.
Thank you. Raja, you've probably been working with many of these brands over the last so many decades, and the kind of money that is being spent has grown phenomenally. And I think that's also because the avenues or the channels have also grown. But how have you seen this evolution? Is it a sporadic evolution, or has it been a gradual evolution? What are your opening remarks on this particular, the media with brands especially, and the spend, so to say, from 360 to 365?
Okay, I think, we could approach, probably I'll approach that question in two parts. Part one being how the consumer has evolved, how the purchase journey of a consumer has evolved. Another, how media as such has evolved, and so many opportunities and options have evolved. So the first part in terms of consumer, how they've evolved. Now initially, somebody has a requirement, they go to the market, they purchase, and the entire recruitment happens. But now, there are, almost 4 stages in which the consumer journey happens. One, there is a passive stage. Passive stage is when, you are actually not buying anything, but you are actually making a mental note of all the options available through different communication which is happening in the ecosystem. Then there is a trigger. And then there is this active phase where actually you go scouting for what you want to buy. And there are so many different options which will help you choose what you want to buy. And that's what you're doing in the active stage. And then you actually do the purchase, where it's the moment of truth, where actually you buy, and then you experience the product, and then you make a particular impression about the product. So now that the consumer journey itself has evolved so much, and there are so many different stages, and there are so many different communication requirements that can influence a consumer in each of the stage, medium becomes really important. Now, taking that to how the medium has evolved. Initially, we used to have, Anup was talking about how we had limited programs, how we had limited channels, and life was so simple during that time. But now, television, suddenly there was an explosion in television. There are about 500 channels. Then there is, print, suddenly, which used to be such a powerful medium. The relevance of medium for an advertiser, it was getting challenged. And then there was this advent of digital. Digital has so many options. You have paid media, you have search, you have programmatic, you have native, you have social, you have mobile, you have now OTT, you have linear TV, and then you have multi-screen where you have cinema, you have DTH. Suddenly, you are suddenly bombarded with so many different options, and then syncing everything in terms of how the consumer purchase journey has evolved and how the media is exploding is basically what we do and what we get paid for. So that's where the entire evolution of media and evolution of consumer journey happens.
I'm going to come back to you for the next round as well, but once again to Kumarvel. We're talking about 365-day experiences. So for a woman, there are basic services. For a gent, there are haircuts and shaves, and today a lot of bearded men are there, and then that is a repeat activity. So which means that every time somebody comes at the particular salon for a particular service, you expect them not to appreciate this service, but also to come back for the next service. How difficult has it been to retain that customer? And how is it that you're using different kinds of media? I mean, it could be one-to-one calling. We've been discussing on that, where you call customers, send messages through social media, of course, and Facebook. Every salon now perhaps has a separate page. And so how are you bringing back the same guest once again to avail that service and, of course, to push more services?
No, our business is very high repeat customer business. More than 80% of our customers are repeat customers. So that's a good news, not only for our brand may be slightly higher. In general, the genre itself is a high repeat customer business, so which is a good news for us. The good news is also about the people are, as much they are brand loyal, they are also stylist loyal. So there comes the, what you call the additional plus point or the minus point. The brand attracts the customer into the salon, then it is up to the stylist to retain them and make them come again and again. And that is where the stylist plays a very, very important role. And that's how the business is at this point of time. Though at a point of time I thought I should make this business into a product agnostic and stylist agnostic. Later I realized today the market has moved from brand to a particular service what we are offering. Actually today it has become very personalized. So we need to create a stylist also into a brand inside the salon. He is actually like an Intel inside. The trick of the trade now is how to make each stylist a mini brand inside the salon is what is going to work for us in the going terms. And that's how we are looking at it at this point of time.
And in the same line, page 3 is the premium format of Naturals. You had Naturals, then you had Naturals Lounge, and then you worked on multiple other formats within Naturals, and then you created a completely different brand, page 3, which is once again 365-day experience. I mean, if you can share some thoughts on that also.
Oh, the 5% of Indians have got a lot of money. They don't know where to spend. So we need to give them different positioning statements, and then only they will give money. And it's same for every product. So we know. And the Indian customers are also very fools. You tell the product to be high price, they think it is high quality.
I think it's been too critical, but yeah, it's a fact, right? Yeah. So that's how page 3 has been.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you ask me, I will not pay money and go to page 3.
I hope this part is being edited, or is it going live already?
But there are many customers who do that. So what can I do for them?
So it's all experience driven finally, because they like the jazz, they like the chair, the scissors, the probably the stylist is also slightly more elevated in terms of their experience, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
there is obviously when you collect 3 times the money for the same service, there are a lot of finesse attached to that particular service which we are able to provide much more easily. But if you ask me, a value conscious customer, which is where I feel the bulk of India is there. So we still prefer to go focus on naturals a lot more and make money from page 3. So that's
super. How many of you have Amazon app on your mobile phones? I'm going to give a gift voucher who doesn't have. So how many of you have it? Most of you have it, right? So it's a given that about close to 40-45% of all e-commerce sales in India comes from one category, which is what we call as CDIT, which is computers, durables, and IT, consumer durables and IT. Now, it's an ordained myth in our mind that when you buy electronics online, it's cheaper. And that's what all of us think. And ultimately, we end up becoming fools, as he rightly said, because the product is not only tad expensive, in many cases, it's probably not even original. Vivek did something very, very interesting to counter this recently. And I'm going to make Vishal talk about it for the next 5 minutes of how they, while Amazon or Flipkart, with all due respect, are brainwashing the minds of consumers, these guys did something very different by embedding it as part of a tele-serial. Anup is not here, but they did something very interesting. Vishal, all yours.
Thanks to Vickerton, who was our partner in this story during Diwali. So the entire concept was to change the perception or at least reach our target audience, saying that online is not cheap and we get better products at the right price in our offline stores as well. So we had integrated with Naigi serial on Vickerton, and close to about 2 minutes, the entire storyline was such that the couple comes into our store and buys a product, understands it much, much more, and apparently finds it cheaper than online, which is also true. It's not just the story build up. So, and then they walk out of it. In fact, this entire thing, actually, yes, existing customers, new set of customers, and in fact, reach the whole world. I've got calls from the US, UK, where our Tamil population is saying that, yes, you guys have done a good job. I would say thanks to Vickerton, this really, really worked. So, yeah, that's about it.
So actually in that clip, there is a couple which is wanting to purchase a washing machine, right? And then the guy says, I will buy it online. And then the lady says, no, we'll go to a Vivek showroom where it is cheaper. He promises and says, no, it is cheaper online. But I mean, the lady says, so obviously we all obey. So he also goes to the shop, and finally the price is actually much lesser than what he thought. And then he actually quietly goes and scrolls on his mobile phone, and then he figures out that the price is actually cheaper. Where I'm coming from is price versus experience, especially for consumer durables. I'm sure many of you here would have probably encountered the New Year Day sale, which used to begin at 6 o'clock at Lusk Corner, Vivek's outlet, way back in the late 80s, where people would queue up and, for the first 1 hour and for the first 3 hours, and sometimes for the whole day, products would be at very, very low throwaway prices for just that one day. And today, many e-commerce companies and digital companies are having this cost of acquiring, right? And I think that was your cost of acquiring. So, through this message, probably you've told consumers that you're cheaper, but once the consumer comes inside, how are you carrying through that experience 365 days a year?
It is becoming
specific to pricing comparison versus
e-commerce. Yeah, it is becoming a challenge in terms of retaining the customers. For the simple reason, today nobody really reads or reviews or takes an effort to understand what's sold online and what is sold offline. They just want the price. There is actually a difference in the product. People just don't want to read the technical specifications. And when we try to explain, kudikriya illiya, illa na kalambra. That's all. Yeah. Phone varadu ulla varade app Amazon, Flipkart. So in fact, we've in fact given our salesmen what is the true difference. It's just that the brands cannot expose that. We are at least taking the effort of trying and exposing. We give them a comparison chart. We tell them this is the difference. But in terms of the pricing, trust me, we are probably 1% cheaper or even 100 rupees cheaper. It's the problem is the perception today that online cheap aidichu. And these guys spend money like God knows what. So that's where the challenge is.
Thanks so much. Once again, back to Sandeep.
I wanted to add to CK, sir. I just wanted to give him this good piece of thing. I am a loyal customer of Natural Lounge for the last 7 years. My wedding makeup, everything was done by one of the stylists there. And till date, I go to the same stylist based on the time that he's available.
So that's all about the experience that you're talking about. We are running behind schedule, so I'm going to have a quick wrap and then we're going to open it up to the audience for questions. On to you, Sandeep. You spoke about activations, offline activations, a lot of BTL and all that. How much is digital media helping you do that? I mean, Facebook, WhatsApp communications, your actual experiences, use cases, quickly that you could share.
On the digital, actually, it's a very tough task, actually. So, and also from a marketer's perspective, it is a money which is, played on trust than on, sometimes on real numbers coming back to you. But there are certain things that we really do, which we've found success, which is in the, where people give their opinions about the product. So the actual videographed, feedback about the product, and they become ambassadors, testimonial holders for the thing. So that is something which probably triggers among consumers saying that, okay, there is someone saying good about the product, and then we kind of use it on other mediums, push it through other channels, which kind of drives a certain amount of credibility to what is there. So we don't have a brand ambassador for quite some years. I mean, we've not invested in any brand. So the credibility for the product, the believability that hey, the fragrance are great, that something comes out better, there's a new product, all that is being championed by the opinion makers from small towns, maybe, let's say, or wherever. I mean, they could be placed anywhere.
So instead of relying on media, you're relying on media influencers or
people
who have a sort of
a
say.
Yeah. So there are a couple of companies who do this quite well. There is one called Home Tester, where you can just send the samples across. They actually post what the feedback is about the product, and they give you, and they get into technical details as well. You can fill in a questionnaire, they give you technicals. Recently, I was speaking to someone from something called Frapp. We've still not worked with them, but we're in discussion, where they're talking about that they will actually have influencers from different places, and they will go get feedback from people. So each one, you make one person an influencer. His job is to go and get 10 other, spread the word to 10 other people, and he gets his pocket money. So, and if you think of how we earn pocket money and how they are earning pocket money is very different. But there is this whole medium who's doing this.
Sort of a multi-level marketing, but more
something like that, yeah. But
focused on the consumer segment. Last question, Raj. We've been hearing how Disney Plus has broken records, and now Apple TV, and then there's so much of thrust on OTTs happening all over the place. How much do you think brands should tilt their focus towards new media compared to traditional media? Yes, everyone is experimenting. Nobody is willing to put all their money onto new opportunities. But what's your advisory if the audience can take away something free of cost from Wavemakers?
So see, at this point in time, the options as such for advertising on OTT is limited, actually. When we are talking about OTT, we are talking about two types of content. One is majorly at this point in time. So majorly linear TV. Linear TV. By linear TV, I mean TV content being played on OTT. So an audience watching or consuming a television program can make a choice whether to actually consume it on TV or on the digital platform. So that's linear TV. So those kind of content is definitely available on OTT. And there are then those originals, which are subscription-based. Now, most of these originals where actually the audience is not open for advertising at this point in time, right? So, so given that we have options of advertising on linear TV, which is TV content being delivered on OTT, or otherwise certain premium content like cricket, sports related, stand-up comedy. There are certain shows where we could advertise. So we would probably, at this point in time, it's not making a major dent in terms of where the advertising dollar should go. So while we are actually putting a majority of our advertising dollars into television, there is a little bit which is going into OTT, given the options available. But as the ecosystem evolves, as the OTT platforms are open for more and more advertising and different options come about, then I think there will be a lot of challenge, both in terms of how we plan for it and how we can measure for it. So at this point in time, we can measure for television, but measuring for OTT, I mean, in terms of the multiplier effect it can happen, it can have in terms of reach and frequency, it's going to be a challenge. So it's at this point in time, wait and watch.
Thanks so much. The MC is already standing here because she wants me to finish the session, but if I can request her for 2 questions from the audience. We are 4 of us. Give us 3 minutes exactly, 30 seconds for a question, 1 minute to answer, 2 questions. Any 2 enthusiasts from the audience, feel free to ask your questions towards any of the panelists.
I think the gentleman there has already stood up. Yes, sir, you can stand up. We'll get a mic for you. I was made to stand on the podium. I was told to come back here and say that we'd want to kind of wrap it up.
This is the question to Mr. Kumaravel. Being a service industry, how you used to give the importance for other 3 P's in marketing mix?
What are the other P's you are talking about?
People, process, and physical evidence.
People, process, and physical?
Evidence.
People in our business, people are perhaps the most important, which is what I said, the stylists are brand inside the brand, and that's how much importance. We call them as the smile providers. We don't call them because their job is to put smile in the customer's face, and customer will come back again and again for the stylist. So if I have to put my money on the table, I will put the money on the table for the stylist at this point of time. And he has come here is the example, 7 years, 1 stylist, and that's how the business is moving. And we are one of the rare businesses. We are not threatened by Amazon or Flipkart. You still can't have a haircut online, so we are very happy about it.
Yes, sir. You can also not buy parents and children online. Adu irunda andor option will be very soon available. But yes, for the services, we're still dependent on.
One more question, please. Any one more.
Do we have
None?
any other questions?
Okay. So no questions. We're all going to meet for lunch right away. But let me just finish with one anecdote which I want to give, since I have that 1.5 minutes left over. Last year, a day before Diwali, November 5th, 2018, I'm watching TV with my 2 daughters, and suddenly there's a sound on the LCD TV, which is a 9-year-old Samsung, pat, and then it's gone. That's about 3 o'clock in the evening, one day before Diwali, okay? And I messaged his elder brother saying that, the TV is conked off, tomorrow is Diwali, what do I do? He said, you have 2 options. One is I can send a technician, who will probably come and inspect and get this repaired. But sorry, the next 3 days, nobody is going to come. One option is that. Second option is I can send you a brand new TV. So I said, it's already 3:30 now. How soon can you send? He said, how soon do you want? Believe me or not, the TV was delivered at my home at 7 o'clock. And a technician from Vivek's, from Xiaomi actually came. I was the first guy to buy a Xiaomi smart TV in Chennai from Vivek's, and that was a time when Vivek's had an exclusivity to sell Xiaomi TVs offline. They were the only retailer who were selling that. And by 8:45, the TV was connected. 9 o'clock, I was watching on a brand new television sitting at home, and I did nothing. I literally did nothing. And trust me, my friends, I represent the larger retail industry. E-commerce is not an industry, e-commerce is a channel, and that's what I told somebody else also some time back. So this magic and this 365-day experience can happen only with offline retail and probably not with e-commerce. So with that thought, I'd like to thank my panelists here, Media News for You, my sponsors, and the organizers for this wonderful session.